Senator from South Carolina.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise in support of the nomination of Senator Sessions to be Attorney General of the United States, and let me make a few comments about the process. I would expect that the Attorney General nominee know the President well before they're chosen. This idea that Senator Sessions was close to President Trump during the campaign is somehow a disqualifier makes absolutely zero sense to me. The bottom line is that's exactly the kind of people you would expect a president to pick. Someone who has been on their team, someone they know, someone they believe in to carry out the duties of the office that they're nominated for. So I don't have the time to go through history, but I would assume that in past nominations, particularly for Attorney General, there's been some kind of relationship between the president who nominated and the person who's seeking the job. So if that's going to be the new standard, I would suggest that nobody in this body ever endorse anybody for president because apparently you can't serve in the cabinet. That would be kind of silly. I look at this as, are you qualified for the job? Our friends on the other side look at it as if you don't agree with their liberal agenda, you can't do the job. Big difference. There's been an absolute wholesale attack on everything Trump when it comes to the nominations, with a few exceptions. And the basis of the attack is that they don't share the worldview of our friends on the other side. That worldview was litigated pretty thoroughly, and you lost. What do you expect Donald Trump to do after his campaign? I expect him to do what he said he was going to do. Some of it I agree with it, some of it I don't. And where I don't agree with him, I will challenge him. But the one challenge I will not make against this president is to deny him the ability to pick somebody that is clearly, in my view, qualified, even though I may have differences with them on particular issues. I would say this about Senator Sessions. I've known him for 20 years almost. I've traveled throughout the world with Senator Sessions and his family. Most of the time I agree with Jeff Sessions, sometimes I don't, but I found him to be an incredibly honorable man, worthy of the job of being United States Senator from the great state of Alabama, reflecting the values of the people of Alabama. That's what he got elected to do, by the way. And I think he'll be uniquely qualified to be the Attorney General of the United States at a time of great challenge. He's been a U.S. attorney. He's been Attorney General of his state. He's a man steeped in the law. His biggest crime, I think, is that he's very conservative. That, to me, is not a disqualifier any more than being very liberal is a disqualifier. How do you think we felt when Barack Obama basically turned Obamacare upside down with one executive order after another? Every time it started stinking up in public, he would unilaterally change the law to avoid a political consequence, or granting millions of people legal status with a stroke of a pen well beyond his lane, struck down by court as being outside his ability as president to do. And not once did anybody on that side raise an objection. Eric Holder's a fine man. I can't remember a time when Eric Holder stood up to this runaway train in the Obama administration. Loretta Lynch is a fine woman. I can't remember one time she expressed doubt about President Obama's agenda when it's left up to the courts to express doubt. And this election, believe it or not, was a lot to do with the way the last 8 years has rolled out. This was a check and balance election, and you're not going to be able to undo the consequences of this election unfairly. And I think it would be unfair to say that Senator Jeff Sessions is not qualified for the job at hand. Most of the attacks against Senator Sessions could be levied against almost everybody on this side of the aisle. The NAACP, according to Jeff Sessions, is one of the premier civil rights organizations in the history of the country, and I think that is a fair characterization. Mr. Cornell Brooks, CEO of the NAACP, said of Senator Sessions, Senator Sessions' record throughout his career, whether in the office of the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Alabama, as Attorney General of the State of Alabama, or most recently as the junior U.S. Senator from Alabama, evidences a clear disregard, disrespect, and even disdain for the civil and human rights of racial and ethnic minorities, women, the disabled, and others who suffer from discrimination in this country. A damning indictment. Apparently, he doesn't stay in contact with the NAACP chapter in Alabama, because in 2009, the NAACP gave Jeff Sessions Civic and Human Rights Convention, April 23rd to 26th, 2009, NAACP Governmental Award of Excellence, Senator Jeff Sessions, for the outstanding work you do. That's one of the awards he forgot to tell us about, so I hope he will amend. Another attack on Senator Sessions, he received an award from a David Horowitz group, who was labeled by Senator from Connecticut as being some right-wing extremist organization. All I can say is the Annie Taylor Award is named for a lady who went over Niagara Falls in a barrel. They give it to conservatives who stood up under difficult circumstances. I actually received the award as an impeachment manager. Chris Matthews was there to moderate the dinner. So I don't know what Mr. Horowitz has said after I was there, before he was there. All I can say is that I received the award too, and I sure as hell don't consider myself a bigot. Voting against the Violence Against Women Act authored by Senator Leahy. I won't give you a long rendition. I voted against it too, for reasons I'll be glad to explain to you at a later time. The bottom line here is that most of the things said about Jeff Sessions and the way he acted as a senator could be said about almost all of us on this side who consider themselves conservative. Back to our friends at the NAACP. I asked Mr. Brooks, do you have a legislative scorecard, how you rate people in the body? And he said yes, and Senator Sessions has been historically low rated. Here's what I want the body to know, that in the report card of the 113th Congress, the first half, here are the ratings. Senator Grassley, all Republicans here, 11%, Hatch 25%, Graham 25%, Cornyn 11%, Lee 11%, Cruz 11%, Sass, he wasn't in the Congress, Flake 29%, Crapo 14%, Tillis and Kennedy were not rated yet. On the Democratic side of the Judiciary Committee, Feinstein 100%, Leahy 100%, Whitehouse 100%, Klobuchar 100%, Franken 100%, Coons 96%, Blumenthal 100%, Hirano 100%. Not only did Jeff Sessions have a poor rating, all of us did. So to my friends on the other side, you're making arguments that I don't think are good for the future of this body and the country as a whole. You're basically saying you did not vote for the legislation I supported. You voted against ideas I embrace that I think make America a unique place. Therefore, you cannot have this job. Here's what I would say. Senator Sessions voted as a very conservative senator from the state of Alabama, who has conducted himself honorably his entire life. And I really regret that we've gotten to this point. All of us in here know Jeff, and I have been on this floor fighting with him tooth and nail about immigration reform. I've worked with Senator Durbin, who's going to speak next, and our chief antagonist most of the time was Senator Sessions. Never in my darkest day did I ever believe that Jeff Sessions said one word on this floor that he did not truly believe. And he reflects the views of millions of Americans. As to the status of the LGBT community, I think Jeff Sessions was representing the values of his state, and all I can say is that that's what we're set up here to do, and if we disagree, we disagree. But it's a big leap from policy disagreement to not qualified. And I asked the NAACP chairman, name one Republican you would recommend to be Attorney General. I've yet to get a name. So what we're talking about here, unfortunately, is an attack on conservatism more than it is Jeff Sessions. Because almost everything said about Jeff could be said about me and most of my colleagues over here. Why did I vote for Holder? Why did I vote for Lynch? Why did I vote for Sotomayor and Kagan? And the list goes on and on and on. I expect that when a liberal president wins, that they will pick people who are qualified, who share their view, to represent their administration. And when it comes to the Attorney General, you can be liberal and you can be conservative, but you still also can be fair to the public as a whole. I don't believe for 1 second that Jeff Sessions, as Attorney General of the United States, will take any of his political positions and jam them down your throat if the law says no. I've never seen that about the man. And the minority leader of the Alabama Senate, Senator Ross, African-American Democratic minority leader, said, I have worked with Jeff Sessions. I know him personally, and all of my encounters with him have been for the greater good of Alabama. We've spoken about everything from civil rights to race relations. We agree that as Christian men, our hearts and minds are focused on doing right by all people. That is the Jeff Sessions that I know. That is why I lend my support to his nomination. I have some serious differences with President Trump, and those differences will materialize over time. And I hope I have the courage of my convictions to stand up for what I believe, even when my party has the White House. That's a very hard thing to do for all of us. I intend to do it to the best of my ability, and I will get a lot of coverage for doing that, because that makes for good political reporting. But what will not be covered is the fact that on the really big issues, mostly, I agree with President Trump and Jeff Sessions about what we need to do to change the dynamic regarding crime. I will work with Senator Durbin to bring about sentencing reform, but it is now time to go in on the offense against crime. And one of the things that pleases me most about this nomination of Senator Sessions is that we have been very strong allies in fighting the war on terror. That Jeff Sessions understands the difference between fighting a crime and fighting a war. That it will be welcome news for me to have an Attorney General who understands that bin Laden's son-in-law, who's captured on the battlefield, should be treated differently than somebody that tried to steal your car. That under Jeff Sessions, the Justice Department will look at enemy combatants for who they are, warriors in a cause to destroy our life, and they will be held consistent with the law of war, not domestic criminal law. In the days of terrorists being read the Miranda rights as if they were a common criminal will soon be over. That will make us all safer. So I look forward to voting for Senator Sessions, working with him, and if we have disagreements, the one thing I know for sure that Jeff will at least listen to me. This body is adrift. The country is really divided. I hope that once this confirmation process is over, that we can get back to doing the business of the American people. And to the extent that Donald Trump becomes the problem, we will push back. Right now, people are pushing back against everything all the time. And you're going to hurt yourself as well as this body, because there is no way you can ever convince me that Jeff Sessions is not qualified to be the Attorney General. I can understand why you wouldn't pick him. There's no doubt in my mind that he's somebody a Republican conservative president would pick, and they did. I yield the floor.